This time, European Championships reheated.
No more, 'cause I'll stay a wild rover forever and more.
Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a football podcast in which fans attempt the seemingly impossible to rank once and for all who are the greatest teams of all time. My name's Graham Dunn, and joining me over in our data corner, we have Jamie Rooney.
Hello, Graham. We're on a Euro trip, a Euro holiday. Is it hot tub time machine Euro trip? I don't know. Where did we get to with the time machine?
This must be some kind of hot tub time machine. Yeah, very much so. Yes, whilst the Euros are going on and whilst we are in our closed season after finishing season 2 of By Far the Greatest Team, we thought we would just keep a bit of content coming at you by reheating a few of our European Championship classic teams that we've done. Of course, we have just come off the back of our Euro 96 special, in which we established that, glorious tournament though that was, there wasn't really much by way of goal action, and the memory of living through it and the summer of 96 and Britpop is maybe it wasn't quite what we thought it was. Is that a fair summary, Jamie?
Yeah, I think a fair summary would be for Euros 96, Gascoigne goal, 15 brilliant minutes against the Netherlands, lots of awful shots, and a really rubbish tournament.
Yeah, broadly that, and a chip, a lob, or a scoop, depending how you view Davor Suker or Poborski's goals. Yes, what we thought we'd do just over the summer is just point in the direction of a few different European teams or European Championship teams that we've covered across the 2 seasons of the podcast. Now, the first of these, I think we might have coming up, Jamie, is back from season 1 when we were doing teams in slightly shorter order. Is that about right?
Yes, we tried to condense an episode to rank 3 teams from the glorious past, these fantastic football teams in a single episode. And I think by episode 6, we realised that wasn't going to work going forward, and we've now streamlined our format so it's 1 team per episode, generally with a couple of double headers. But yeah, we it's almost like we could see the future when we were building this together, that we'd need some kind of gap fillers when the Euros are on in 2024. So we've covered the glorious Netherlands team with Mario Tilney-Bassett when we featured the brilliant David Pleat's Tottenham team. So the Netherlands in 1988, and then we got the Thunderclaps of Iceland, that great team that destroyed the England career of Roy Hodgson and knocking England out in the Euro 2016 tournament, but they went on to lose against France. And then in season 2, we covered the great Panenka, football in verbs, which we love. The Czechoslovakian team that beat the mighty West Germany on penalty kicks in 1976, the only penalty shootout that West Germany have ever lost.
At the time of recording, of course. We have they are 3 great teams. All 3 of those teams are in the current tournament, and well, no, they're not. Sorry, 2 of those teams in the current tournament. Iceland, of course, aren't, but England are doing their best
you're right.
Repeat their performance against Iceland.
I think you're right, Graham. 3 of those teams are in the current tournament. We've got the Netherlands, and we've got Czech, and we've got Slovakia.
Yeah, that is very good. I like it. Excellent. So we have those lined up for you now, coming up over these next 3 weeks. So please sit back and enjoy Euro Classics. So, Jamie, we are now going to go to 1988, and a team which, throughout its career has probably not won the tournaments that it should have, not achieved everything that it might have. But in 1988, things came good for the Dutch national team.
Yeah, the nearly men. In strange times in football history, I think, as well. Whilst we were in a period where English teams had been banned because of the Heysel disaster. The Dutch and the Netherlands, they were having their own problems with hooliganism that was going on, and big rivalries. So it's an odd period, yet you've got this incredible collective that Rinus Michels is back from the 74 World Cup where the Netherlands had failed to beat West Germany. The Dutch hadn't been to a major tournament since 1980, so they've missed out on the three last major tournaments. But now they've got a bit of collective, and they've got a bit of a new team. They've got 4 or 5 players in the squad that have just won the European Cup with PSV. They've got a couple of absolute superstars in Van Basten and Gullit, who are playing at AC Milan. Rijkaard would go and join them shortly after the Euros, after his fallout with Johan Cruyff at Ajax and spending a season in the wilderness. You've got the Koeman brothers, Ronald Koeman, the centre-back, who seems to be on the edge of the box, taking thunderbolt shots in every single showreel I've seen from that particular tournament. And then you've got this Ajax heart, Jan Wouters and Arnold Muren in the middle of this Dutch team. And it's all about the qualification into 88, and then it's all about 88. But it didn't all go to plan. There were things that went awry. It had the happy ending, but there were periods where it looked, again, it was going to be the nearly man story for the Dutch. But fortunately for them on this occasion, that wasn't the case, and they were able to get their first, and today only, major international trophy.
I think it's also another reminder of that. That, it's a very iconic one. The kit is really iconic of that team, as you say. Proper star quality in that team. Gullit, obviously, with the extraordinary level of it, but Van Basten, defenders who would actually go on to be real stars as well. The one that I had forgotten about, and this, when sometimes I had to double check that it couldn't be the same player. Arnold Muren, in my mind, he wasn't playing in that tournament. He must have been the Luka Modric of that era, because he was. So it was Muren and Tyson at Ipswich in '70. That's like a decade before, and Arnold Muren. Probably, to my mind, he was always sort of 28 to 30 when he started. How could he possibly still be in that team?
Yeah, he did have the touch of the old man about him, but I think he could.
I think he was over 30. Was that old in those days?
Yeah, yeah, that's really old
for a footballer back then.
Did he appear in Escape to Victory? Because most of the Ipswich team didn't they? Wasn't he Man United as well before Ajax?
He went to Manchester United, and he had a good spell there with Ron Atkinson. I think he definitely won the '83 FA Cup with United. I don't think he was around in '85. I think by that point he had moved on to Ajax. But yeah, I too, Graham, remember him from that amazing Ipswich Town team. But yeah, I agree. He does seem to be been around forever, even though he probably wasn't. The mark of the man's qualities.
I do assume, when we're doing this podcast in, 2050, and teams will start talking about the Croatia World Cup winning team in sort of 2026, which Luka Modric got the winning goal in, and people are going to, was he still playing then? There are players who defy time. As you say, it wasn't straightforward, wasn't it? Holland were quite fancied, and and I suppose that isn't a new thing. Dutch teams have been well fancied ahead of most tournaments, has almost been their biggest problem. But this one didn't get off to a good start, did it, Jamie?
No, they lost to the Soviet Union, and before that they'd lost in a friendly to Bulgaria going into the tournament, and then they went into the group phase where they were in a group with the Soviet Union, England, and the Republic of Ireland. The Republic of Ireland, Jack Charlton, is the first ever tournament that the Republic of Ireland had qualified, and probably seen as the whipping boys, and that turned out not to be the case. But yeah, they lost to the Soviet Union to a rat's goal, 1-0 on the counter. Rinus Michels was calm afterwards. I think he'd been there, he'd seen it before, and just reminded his collective, and it was a strong group on and off the pitch, that there was 2 games and he had a plan, and they were still very much in the tournament, and that turned out to be the case because they went into the next game against England and a Van Basten hat-trick. Well, Van Basten actually didn't play in the first game against the Soviet Union. He was carrying a knock. And it was Willie won't he start, and he didn't, but he did start against England in the second game, and he famously scored that hat-trick against England.
Does that hat trick have the volley, the acute volley into the corner? Or is that a different game?
That's the final.
That's the final.
Van Basten,
yeah. I do remember that England side was a bit of a horror show of an England team. In fairness, in '88, I think probably, did we draw with Republic of Ireland? I think that's probably the only part. So probably beating us wasn't that special, but I mean, it seems extraordinary to leave Van Basten out. But these things happen in finals, don't they? Michael Owen, of course, didn't start for England in the in Glenn Hoddle's first year. Paolo Rossi wasn't a starter for Italy ahead of the team, and I suppose Jeff Hurst for England, but that was for different reasons. But so having beaten England, the Netherlands then secure qualification.
No, they had to get a win against Ireland. A draw would have put them out. And going into that game, it was goalless with 10 minutes to go, and they got a late one to win. In that game as well, how Paul McGrath hasn't scored a header is incredible. I mean, the bullet header, it hits the bar, it bounces on the line, it almost stays on the line. It's got players around it. No one deflects it in when it looks like it should be deflected in. No one can poke it in for Ireland. And how it stays from not going beyond the goal line is quite incredible. So a bit of luck. They get the late one. They get the win they need. They go into the semi-finals. Just interested to get Mario's thoughts on this incredible Dutch team and whether he has any memories. So, he was a sprightly Tottenham fan at this point. And can he remember anything about those amazing players, Van Basten and
I'm going to say, it's funny, we talked about nearly greatness, and you've covered off a lot of this. That team at that point was just a brilliant team. We've talked about Gullit, Van Basten, Muren, the Koemans, Frank Rijkaard, and it remains the only time Netherlands have ever won a major sort of tournament. And I think, and also you talked as well, Jamie, about how Coventry beat Spurs earlier in the season, and we talked together about the powers of the Soviet Union beating Netherlands, and then for the final they're going to do it again. Now this ended a little bit happily for the Netherlands, and I think wasn't there an amazing wonder goal as well from Van Basten? I know you said there's been a few videos and things like that you were genning up before this, and so I remember it being just a wondrous team, and like, wow, they're brilliant. And it was easy. It's always easy to like the Dutch, isn't it? Because they're the sort of lovable, friendly Europeans everyone wants to be. I do think the Dutch are often people's second or sort of, can we say second or third European team? What do you reckon? Is that a fair statement?
I've always loved them.
Yeah, we expect things from the Dutch. Total football never won anything in the 70s, but this was their chance. And I do think this is a team that did achieve greatness. And it's interesting that, it's the only tournament they won. I think they went out quite quickly to West Germany when it was Italia 90. So it was very much that sort of, you burn bright and then fizzle out. But that's what makes them great, I think.
When you look back at these, because of course what then surprised me, and I keep finding this with a lot of the stories we talk about are things which don't, so the Euros, the last one went on for several months, and you get, you won. The World Cup goes on for even longer. You've got the Euros was always a really, really difficult and small tournament. It was harder to win the Euros arguably than to win the World Cup, I think. It's only an 8-team competition, isn't it? So the Dutch are already through to the semi-finals from that. And then when you think it is only... I was just looking at the top scorers in that tournament. Van Basten was the top scorer of 5. Once he'd scored that hat trick in the second game, he could have only played that game and been the top scorer, because there were only 2 other players scored more than 1 goal in that tournament. So Rudy Voller and Oleh Protasov of Russia were the only other players to score more than 1 goal in that tournament, other than Van Basten. And it does make you realise that strangeness of that tournament compared to current things. But it makes it, proper elite football, doesn't it? But it also means, in a small tournament like that, you don't have long to find your feet. It sort of is a testament to the calmness of Michaels, and especially given the Dutch's ability to implode. It's quite impressive that they held their nerve to go ahead and win that tournament.
It is true, because the Dutch do have a reputation for finding an argument in the calmest of places, and that they can implode. But there was a collective this time, and I think that's down to the experience of Rinus Michels. And you're right, they faced Germany, West Germany as it was, and quite interestingly, this was the last European tournament, where West Germany, the Soviet Union, and Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia through qualification would have taken part, because it was shortly after this that Germany was unified, Russia dissolved into 15 countries, although in 20 years' time we might be talking about them all being back together again, who knows. Yugoslavia split into 6 countries. So it was a very interesting time for football, as I mentioned earlier, with football history, because Europe is changing, the landscape of Europe is changing. And they face West Germany, the host, the favourite. They go a goal down and they come from behind. Van Basten scores the winner, and they go to the final, where they beat the Soviet Union, and they score an incredible second goal from Marco van Basten. We all know about that volley. Muren crosses the ball. It's got far too much weight on it. I remember reading Van Basten saying, I didn't have the energy to bring it down. I was just too tired. So I just thought I'd swing at it. And, he's calculated all that in a nanosecond. He swung at it, and it's absolutely fired into the roof of the net. And the goalkeeper, Dazzling, who's one of the best in the world at the time, doesn't have a chance. But that was the second goal. And in the first half, they've gone 1-up through Ruud Gullit, a power, classic kind of Ruud Gullit power header, which kind of brings me in to Mario. Didn't you spend some time with Ruud Gullit?
I did do a bit of work with Ruud Gullit. Well, because I'm a big personal fan of Ruud Gullit. Obviously, I'm sure you boys know he created the term "sexy football" in commentary. But I was doing some sports marketing work for Canon to support their sponsorship of Euro 2004, and Ruud was Canon's ambassador. I'd had the wonderful idea of using Canon kit, turning Ruud from player to photographer. And so I spent a few days with Ruud out in Portugal, which is where Euro 2004 was. Basically, he did do some match photography, photographed an England training session. Just before this session, I was actually checking. If you search Getty Images, you'll still find photos that Ruud Gullit took as photographer when we met the England team in training, and that was the 2004 team with Rooney and Beckham, and I think the Wags were there. So it was a good time to be around, and I was working with Ruud doing his photography. But I was there with him for a while, and I think he liked me because the night before I'd been out drinking when he rang me to see what the plan was, and so I had to go in a pub. I had to say, "Sorry, it's Ruud Gullit on the phone," and then go out and take his call. And I think Ruud was quite amused by the fact that
Ruud again.
I was out and I was going to get a plane the next day. I'm not taking it too seriously, Mario. Oh, no, I'm taking it seriously, Ruud. But we went out for lunch, and then I found that Ruud, one of his fitness secrets is he doesn't eat main courses because the man loves desserts. When I was out with him, the amount of people who want to talk to him about what happened at Chelsea, what happened at Chelsea, we're getting stopped for people to take photos, to get autographs. But he didn't want to talk about football. He really, really didn't want to talk about football. And I kind of get it as well. He's there being paid to talk about football, give his views on the Euros. And what he doesn't want is a fanboy then talking to him about football. But over food, we found common ground because I love football, but I also love food. And Ruud, I remember, skipped mains, and I think he may have had one, maybe two starters and desserts. And we had a very, very detailed conversation about desserts, favoured profiterole fillings, and I liked his style. The idea of skipping main, just having a little nibble of your starter, having a dessert. But you don't want to talk about football. But a very lovely, charming, engaging man, and also a good photographer. Thanks, of course, to Canon's kit. But anyway, no, really nice.
Always on the clock.
As long as you didn't talk about football with him. But the amount of people, what happened at Chelsea, and I'm not sure that's ever been talked about or renounced or anyone's ever said about it. Because I do think when he was at Chelsea, he brought Vialli in, who I think passed away not so long ago. Who would have had a role in bringing Zola in, and Glenn Hoddle, the ex-Spurs man, was manager there. And it felt like an exciting time with, again, sort of foreign talent. Spurs, obviously, being the link men there, with Hoddle bringing in Ruud. But it did feel as though he was happy at Chelsea, that he was bringing the club success, and then Ken Bates got rid of him.
I mean, Ruud Gullit, he's just he was an unbelievable player to watch. He was a show. I mean, sexy foot. I've forgotten that was the term that he created, and he kind of lived and embodied that when he was playing, and that is, I think that is one of the things that is so good about this Dutch side winning, is that you have one of the iconic players winning a tournament and winning it, almost in the style of their best player as well. It's not done in a it's difficult to imagine any Dutch side playing not with glorious style. I mean, obviously, I'm ignoring the hatchet job that took out Spain a few years ago. But that's another a slightly less impressive World Cup final appearance. But I just think the style of the team is really impressive, and for Gullit to be recognised or to have a tournament under his belt just really underlines that.
It's fantastic for Rinus Michels as well, the manager, because literally 14 years previously, in the same city, in the same stadium, Munich, against the same opposition, but in a different tournament, had a fantastic collection of players playing a brand of football that we all know, a team that we will talk about another version on the pod. But fast forward 14 years later, and the ingredients are similar, but the players are different, and he gets to beat them in the semi-final, and then go on and beat the Soviets in the final and get redemption for that first game.
I think it's what's interesting is that actually the final, in many ways, was the semi-final, wasn't it? The Germany game West Germany were by far the biggest side. They were the ones that they were the favourites. They're the home nation. As you say, there's the history, the footballing history involved in that. So to beat them, and there are teams, some of them based in North London, who, having got quite a long way through the job, don't finish it off. But in fairness, they did. They did finish the job off against Russia, a really underwhelming Russia.
Soviet Union,
of course, is. So, USSR, brilliant shirts, of course. Always enjoyed the shirts they had. So underwhelming were the Soviet Union that the team of the tournament, I'm just looking at, has 11 players in them, which that in itself isn't a surprise. There's 11 players in them. Six are Dutch, no Soviet Union players in it at all. So 6 are Dutch, only one German, Lothar Matthäus makes it. 6 Dutch and 4 Italians make the list. No one from the Soviet Union. And I'm going to read that team out because it is an extraordinary sounding side. I mean, this team's playing 4-3-3, and I'm going to go from front to back, because the front three, Vialli, Gullit and Van Basten. That's pretty tidy, isn't it?
Wow.
Midfielders, Matthias, Jan Wouters from Holland, and Giuseppe Gianni from Italy. Now, for a back four, Bergomi, Maldini, Koeman, and Rijkaard. This is decent, isn't it? And so all you need is a top keeper to finish it off. Hans van Breukelen, is he the one?
Hans van Breukelen, he is the one. He's the one that gave away the penalty in the final, goalkeeper. And if you watch it, he comes charging out of his box to chase the ball down that's going nowhere, which he does get a hand to, but he takes the player out. And then even to this day, pleads that it was a perfectly legit tackle and the referee was bonkers toward the penalty. I mean, it's a guy that just hasn't let go. So where are you going to rank them, Graham? Let's start with you on this one. Where you put in the Netherlands 1988, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's got so many elements it touches. It touches the legend quality in Gullit. It touches the legend quality in terms of the kit, brilliant kit. Always an important thing. There's a narrative around it, beating the Germans, and you have some sensational players, genuinely world class players. I think the only thing that probably kind of it was a brief snapshot, like a shooting star that just temporarily lights up. There was no long-term legacy. You can't point to tournaments afterwards. I think the next thing I remember about that team was Frank Rijkaard and Ruud Gullit's spitting match in that Germany game. So for me, it can't hit the one of the greats, but I think they've won one of the hardest tournaments there. For me, true great. What about you, Mario?
I would go with true great because while Spurs didn't win anything, so presumably the edge of greatness, and the '74 Dutch team didn't win anything, despite creating sort of total football. But these guys did win something. The fact that they never won again, the fact that they never reached those heights again, to me just adds the story of their greatness. So I'm also have to go with true great.
Jamie, can you be tempted, or are you going to argue against?
I kind of thought you guys were going to go for one of the greatest, and then I was going to argue that maybe they are just a true great. But I kind of landed in true great as well. And you talked about the legacy, both of you, and it's interesting because the Dutch did go on and qualified after this tournament in '88. They qualified for every single tournament right up until 2,000 Euros, which they hosted, which I think was 7 in a row, which is still to this day is the most that they've qualified. The Netherlands has qualified for consecutive tournaments. And yeah, they went out to West Germany in the World Cup 2 years later. West Germany went on to win it though. And the Dutch went back and Rudy Gullit had to wash his hair many times. They failed to defend their trophy 4 years later. Denmark famously beating them in the semi-finals on penalties. And then they've got a couple of World Cups where they've lost to Brazil in '94, who go on and win it, and the Brazil of '98, where France beat them in the final. But yeah, so touch of greatness, I think for me, there is a bit of a legacy, but not a great legacy. I always expect more from the Dutch, the Netherlands. I think it's a crime against football that they've never won the World Cup, but it's their own fault that they've never won the World Cup.
It's a crime they continue to commit time and time again. Yeah, as you say, I mean, actually, relatively small nation with massive legacy and history of being great at this game, but not one of the greatest. But Netherlands, 1988, true greats. So there you have it. One of our favourite Euro Championship teams there. As we mentioned, we are on our summer holidays from by far the greatest team. Season 2 just completed. We are prepping ourselves for Season 3 as we speak, and for one or two maybe little pre-season friendlies that we can line up during that. But we have done a fair number of these podcasts now. We've got more than 50 or so. Jamie, where can people find the details of our podcast?
So we have a website, thegreatestteam.co, where they can see all the teams that we've ranked in the past. We're also available on all of the podcast providers and platforms that you may use, most notably Apple and Spotify. You can find us there, by far the greatest team. And I think, Graham, by season 3, we might have a little YouTube channel coming our way where people can actually watch and laugh at how we rank these teams.
Yes, if you do, we're looking forward to that. And if you do want to check out any of our rankings, many of which defy explanation even by us, when it comes back to looking back to them, you can find all of those at the website. And we've done a whole load of episodes, and they are, if you're not familiar with the podcast, there's a whole variety of deep dives on minor sides. We have some epic teams along the way, and we've got sometimes we have informed guests on, sometimes it's just me and you, Jamie. So as a reminder, you can of course get hold of us on all the social platforms as well. Myself at Said and Done, it's DUNN, and Jamie at Couch Pundito on the artist formerly known as X. We'd love to hear from you if there are any sides that you think would be worth a look at, any ones that you want us to give that treatment to. And of course, if you're interested in supporting the podcast through advertising or sponsorship or any such elements to enable us to keep doing this, we'd love to hear from you. So again, you can contact us on those same channels.